first thing Tund noticed was the silence. Not the normal quiet of a weekday afternoon. A different kind of silence. The kind that follows bad news before it fully settles into your bones. He sat at the edge of his bed long after returning from work, still wearing his office shirt. His tie hung loosely around his neck. His shoes were dusty from walking instead of taking a bus home. He had not told Amara yet. The termination letter was folded in his back pocket, burning like fire against his skin. From the tiny kitchen corner of their one-room apartment, the scent of frying onions drifted toward him. Amara hummed softly as she cooked, unaware that the life they knew had just tilted. The room was small but warm. Their metal wardrobe leaned slightly to one side. The paint on the walls had long surrendered to cracks and faint water stains. The ceiling fan rotated lazily, making a tired clicking sound every few seconds. It wasn't luxury, but it had always been enough. Until today. Tund. Amara called gently. You're home early. He swallowed. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and stepped into the room, smiling. And that smile almost broke him. You didn't answer my text. Is everything okay? He looked at her. Really looked at her. Her face glowed with heat from the stove. A little flour dusted her cheek. Her body, soft, round, full, filled the doorway in a way he had always found comforting. Now he felt small standing before her. They let me go, he said quietly. The words dropped between them like a heavy stone. Her smile faded, but not in panic. In what sense? She asked carefully. Downsizing, restructuring, whatever they want to call it. I'm no longer working there. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, a generator roared to life in the next compound. Somewhere down the street, a woman shouted at a child. Life continued without pausing to respect heartbreak. Amara walked closer. She didn't gasp. She didn't blame. She didn't ask, "What will we do?" Instead, she reached for his hand. Okay, she said softly. That was all. Okay. Tund felt anger rise unexpectedly. Okay? That's all you have to say? Do you know what this means? Yes, she replied calmly. It means rent. It means feeding. It means shame, Amara. His voice cracked on the last word. Shame. That was the real monster. The next morning, Tund did not wake early. 4 years. His alarm had screamed at 5:30 a.m. He would grumble, dress quickly, and rush out before traffic swallowed the city. Now there was no alarm, no rush, no destination. He lay on his back staring at the ceiling fan, counting its rotations like they were seconds of his worth draining away. Amara woke as usual. She moved quietly, trying not to disturb him. He pretended to still be asleep. He could not bear the thought of her seeing him idle. By noon, hunger forced him to sit up. Amara had left food covered neatly on the small table. Rice, stew, fried plantain. He stared at it for a long time before eating. Each bite tasted like failure. News travels fast in tight neighborhoods. By the third day, the landlord's wife asked casually, "Brother Tund, you're on leave?" He forced a smile. Yes, short leave. 2 boys he used to give transport money to looked at him differently now, like they were calculating something. Even his own reflection began to irritate him. A man without a job. A man without income. What is a man without provision? On the 5th morning, Tund woke to the sound of metal clanging outside. He frowned and sat up. Through the window, he saw Amara arranging a small wooden table near the roadside. A charcoal stove sat beside it. A big pot rested on top. His chest tightened. He rushed outside. What is this? She looked up calmly. I'm starting something. Starting what? Food. I can cook in the mornings and evenings. Workers pass here daily. Akata riders too. Tund's face hardened. You want to become a roadside seller? I want us to eat. Her tone wasn't disrespectful, but it pierced. People will laugh, he muttered. Let them. He shook his head. No, I'll find something. I don't need my wife standing by the road. Amara stepped closer, lowering her voice. Tund, this is temporary. Your pride cannot cook soup. The sentence hit him like a slap. He turned away. That afternoon, 3 construction workers stopped. "How much for rice?" one asked. Amara smiled brightly. "Affordable price, my brother. An extra stew for you." They laughed. Within 2 hours, she sold half the pot. By evening, she had made enough to buy Gary, vegetables, and kerosene. She handed the money to Tund. "For the house," she said simply. He stared at the crumpled notes in his hand. His wife, standing in the sun all day, had provided. Something inside him cracked. Sleep stopped visiting him properly. He would wake at 2 a.m., drenched in sweat, imagining worst-case scenarios. What if he never found another job? What if rent expired? What if Amara began to resent him? But every morning, she woke with purpose. She tied her wrapper tightly around her waist and stepped into the day without complaint. He noticed the stares from passers-by. He noticed the whispers. "See how big she is, sweating under that sun. Her husband must be useless." Each comment stabbed him, though she pretended not to hear. One afternoon, rain poured unexpectedly. Tund rushed outside to help her gather her things. The charcoal hissed angrily as water hit it. They ran inside soaked and laughing breathlessly. For a brief second, in that messy moment, he saw the woman he married. Strong, stubborn, loyal, and for a moment he felt grateful. But gratitude wrestled constantly with wounded ego. It finally exploded one evening. "I saw Chinidu today," Tund said stiffly. "Okay." He asked why you're selling on the roadside. "And what did you say?" "That we're managing." She nodded. "Good." He slammed his hand on the table. "I don't like this." "What don't you like?" she asked quietly. "Seeing you out there, hearing people talk, feeling like I'm not man enough." Silence filled the room. Amara walked toward him slowly. "You are not less of a man because you lost a job." "I feel like I am." Her voice softened. "You are only less of a man if you give up." The words hung between them. He looked away, fighting tears he refused to shed. The next morning, as Amara served customers, she listened carefully to conversations. Men in suits often stopped by. She learned names of companies. She memorized industry gossip. She paid attention, because while Tund was drowning in wounded pride, she was quietly watching for opportunity. That evening, she returned home with tired feet and hopeful eyes. "You will work again," she told him. "How do you know?" "Because this is not your final chapter." He didn't believe her fully, but her certainty planted something small inside him. Not confidence yet, but possibility. That night they ate simple Gary and soup. No meat, no luxury, just survival. As they lay on their thin mattress, Amara rested her head on his chest. "I married you for better or worse," she whispered. Tund stared into the darkness. He didn't respond, but he wrapped his arm around her tighter. Outside, the streetlights flickered weakly. Inside that tiny room, poverty had entered, but love had not yet left. And neither of them knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test loyalty, pride, greed, and destiny itself. The sun was merciless that afternoon. It beat down on the zinc roofs, turning the air thick and restless. Heat shimmered above the dusty roadside where Amara stood behind her small wooden table, fanning the charcoal stove with a flattened carton. Her wrapper clung to her waist. Sweat gathered at her neck. The large pot of jollof rice beside her was almost half empty, a good sign. Business had been improving slowly, not enough to lift them out of struggle, but enough to keep hunger from their doorstep. She adjusted the tray of fried plantain and glanced at the road. The usual workers had passed already. Okada riders slowed occasionally. School children came in 2s and 3s. Then a black SUV pulled up a little distance away. Amara noticed it immediately. Cars like that did not usually stop near her stand. 3 men stepped out, well-dressed, polished shoes, crisp shirts, the kind of men who smelled like air conditioning in offices. She lowered her eyes respectfully but kept watching from the corner of her gaze. They spoke in English, fast, professional, distracted. One of them laughed. I'm telling you, if we don't get a supervisor by next week, that project will collapse. Another side. HR said they've been interviewing, but nobody fits. Either too inexperienced or too expensive. Amara's hand paused mid-fan. Supervisor. Interview. Project. She leaned slightly closer as they approached her table. Madam, what do you have? The tallest one asked. Rice, sir. Beans. Fried yam. Plantain. Fresh stew. Serve 3 plates. She worked quickly, careful not to spill. The men continued their conversation, unaware that every word was landing carefully in her mind. We need someone who understands construction timelines, one said between bites, and site management, not just book knowledge. The last candidate couldn't even read a proper site report, another added. Amara's heart began beating faster. Tund had done that job for years. He had supervised workers, managed timelines, handled materials. She knew because she had listened to him talk about work during better days. She had sat on that same thin mattress at night while he complained about delayed deliveries and lazy contractors. The men finished eating. This is good, one of them said, nodding. What's your name? Amara, sir. He handed her cash, more than the cost. Keep the change. Thank you, sir. As they returned to their SUV, she made a decision. She would not let this information die on the roadside. That evening, Tun sat inside, staring at his phone without really seeing it. He had sent out applications the week before. No replies yet. His beard had started to grow unevenly. His once sharp posture had softened. Amara entered carrying the day's earnings. She placed the money down gently. How was business? He asked without enthusiasm. Better. He nodded absent-mindedly. She hesitated. There's something I heard today. He didn't respond immediately. 3 men came from a construction company. They were discussing an urgent opening. His eyes shifted slightly. What kind of opening? Project supervisor. Silence. He exhaled slowly. There are many openings everywhere. This one is urgent. Amara. They said they haven't found someone suitable. He rubbed his forehead. You think I haven't been applying? I know you have. Then what's the point? The point, she said gently, is that sometimes opportunity doesn't come through email. He looked at her properly now. She moved closer and sat beside him. I listened carefully. The company is handling a large housing project. They need someone experienced. That could be anyone. It could be you. He laughed bitterly. You think they'll hire someone who was just laid off? Why not? Because companies talk. Then let them talk, she replied calmly. Let them talk about how you rebuilt. Her voice was steady, not pushy, not desperate, just certain. The next morning, she brought it up again. He avoided the topic. By afternoon, she printed out a small piece of paper with the company name, written carefully from memory. Go there, she said softly. At least ask. He stared at the paper. You overheard a conversation, Amara. That doesn't mean they'll entertain walk-ins. Then they'll say no. And you think I enjoy hearing no? No, she admitted. But I think you'll hate hearing what if more. That hit. He stood abruptly and paced the room. You don't understand how this feels. Then help me understand, she said. He stopped. It feels like everyone is watching me fail. Her expression softened. They are not watching you fail. They are watching you fight. He didn't answer, but he didn't throw away the paper either. 2 days later, she laid his best shirt on the bed, the white one he wore during festive seasons. She ironed it carefully, smoothing every crease like she was pressing hope into fabric. She polished his black shoes until she could see her reflection. He watched quietly. You really believe this will work? He asked. Yes. What if it doesn't? Then we try again. Her simplicity unsettled him. That night he barely slept. His mind replayed past interviews, past successes, past confidence. He missed the version of himself that walked into rooms without doubt. He woke before the alarm that didn't exist anymore. Amara was already up. She had cooked a small portion of rice and egg sauce. Eat, she insisted. I'm not hungry. You need strength. He forced a few bites down. As he dressed, she adjusted his collar. You look good, she said. He scoffed lightly. Flattery won't change anything. I'm not flattering you. I'm reminding you. She slipped folded transport money into his hand. Go early. Ask politely. Be confident. He paused at the door. What if they ask how I heard? Tell them the truth. That my wife overheard customers? Yes. He almost smiled. You're stubborn. I prefer determined. For the first time in weeks, he felt something close to energy. The company building was larger than his previous workplace. Glass walls, security gate, uniformed guards. His confidence wavered. He almost turned back. But Amara's voice echoed in his mind. You'll hate what if more. He approached the gate. I'm here to inquire about a project supervisor opening. The guard looked skeptical but made a call. After a tense wait, he was allowed inside to speak with HR. The waiting room was cool and intimidating. Two other candidates sat there. One wore a more expensive suit. The other typed confidently on a laptop. Tun swallowed. Maybe this was a mistake. Then a woman called his name. He stood, walked in, answered questions, spoke about past projects, discussed timelines, cost control, worker management. At first his voice trembled. Then it steadied. Then it flowed. For 30 minutes he was himself again. Not unemployed. Not ashamed. Just competent. When they asked how he heard about the opening, he told the truth. One interviewer smiled slightly. That's resourceful. He left unsure of the outcome. But lighter. The journey home felt shorter. Amara was serving customers when he arrived. She read his face immediately. How did it go? I don't know. That's not an answer. He exhaled. I did well. Her eyes brightened. That's enough. For the first time in weeks, they laughed together. That night, they prayed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly hopeful. 2 days passed. Then 3. On the 4th morning, his phone rang. Unknown number. His heart nearly stopped. Hello. A familiar corporate voice responded. We're pleased to inform you. He didn't hear the rest clearly. He only caught one sentence fully. We'd like you to resume next Monday. His knees weakened. Amara watched his expression change. What happened? He lowered the phone slowly. I got it. She froze. Got what? The job. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a cry. She wrapped her arms around him tightly. I told you, she whispered against his chest. This is not your final chapter. He held her differently this time. With gratitude. With relief. With a quiet promise he didn't yet understand he might one day break. Outside, the same dusty road remained. The same small food stand stood in place. But inside that tiny home, hope had returned. And neither of them knew that success, when it finally came, would test them far more than poverty ever did. The first morning of his new job felt unreal. Tund woke before dawn, long before the sky softened into light. For a few seconds, he lay still, listening to the gentle rhythm of Amara's breathing beside him. This time, the silence didn't feel heavy, felt charged. Purpose had returned. He slipped out of bed carefully and ironed his shirt again, even though Amara had already pressed it the night before. He wanted everything perfect. Collar sharp, trousers smooth, shoes shining like new beginnings. When Amara woke, she watched him quietly from the mattress. You didn't sleep much, she said. I didn't want to be late. You won't be. She sat up and smiled, her eyes warm and proud. Today is a good day. He nodded, though his stomach churned with nerves. Before he left, she held his hands. Remember who you are. At the time, it sounded like encouragement. Later, it would sound like warning. The company was larger than his previous workplace. The reception floor gleamed. Staff moved with urgency. Phones rang. Laptops clicked. Everything smelled like ambition. On his first site visit, Tund felt alive again. Helmets, blueprints, workers calling instructions, concrete mixers humming in the background. He stepped onto the site with authority he hadn't realized he missed so desperately. "Good morning," he greeted firmly. The workers straightened slightly. Within hours, he noticed inefficiencies. Delays that could be prevented. Supplies that could be better scheduled. His mind began firing like it used to. This was his world, and he was good at it. When his first salary alert entered his account, he stared at his phone for almost a full minute. It was more than his previous job paid. Substantially more. He read the numbers twice, then 3 times. He showed Amara that evening. She gasped softly. "That is a lot." He tried to remain composed but couldn't hide the pride in his voice. "They value experience here." That night, they ate meat without calculating how many pieces were too many. They even bought ice cream on their way home. Small luxuries felt enormous. Within 3 months, changes began. They moved out of the one-room apartment into a modest 2-bedroom flat in a quieter neighborhood. The paint was fresh. The windows larger. The ceiling fan didn't click. Amara stood in the living room the first evening and turned slowly, taking it in. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Tund felt tall. "This is just the beginning." He bought new suits, tailored ones this time. Slim cuts, fitted shoulders. He replaced his old wristwatch with something shinier. Colleagues began inviting him for after-work drinks. He accepted. Networking, he called it. Amara continued selling food for a while, insisting they should save more before she stopped. But Tund began to feel uneasy when coworkers drove past that roadside. What if someone sees her? He wondered privately. One evening he mentioned it casually. "You don't need to stand in the sun anymore," he said. "I like it," she replied. "And it helps." "It's not necessary now." She studied him carefully. "Are you embarrassed?" "No," he answered too quickly. She didn't argue, but 2 weeks later, she reduced her cooking. Then she stopped completely. Tund worked tirelessly. He arrived early, left late. He reorganized site management processes, reduced waste, improved delivery schedules. 6 months into the job, senior management began noticing. One afternoon, his manager called him into the office. "We're impressed with your performance." Tund maintained a professional expression, but his chest swelled. "We'd like to move you into a higher supervisory role. It comes with increased responsibility and increased pay." Promotion. The word rang in his ears. He called Amara immediately after the meeting. "I got promoted." Her scream of joy nearly burst his eardrum. "I told you," she said again, laughing. "I told you." He smiled, but something subtle shifted inside him. He was rising quickly, faster than he expected. With promotion came access. Boardroom meetings, corporate dinners, executive conversations. The wives of senior staff attended company events. Polished women with sleek figures, manicured nails, and accents shaped by private schools. At first, Tund didn't compare. But comparison is a slow poison. At their first formal company dinner, Amara wore her best Ankara gown. She braided her hair neatly and added modest jewelry. She looked beautiful, warm, real. But as they entered the banquet hall, Tund felt eyes scanning. He noticed the slim silhouettes in fitted dresses, the effortless English flowing from table to table. Amara laughed freely during conversation. Her voice carried naturally. He saw 2 women glance briefly in their direction. Could have meant nothing, but insecurity magnifies everything. "Lower your voice a little," he whispered to her once. She blinked, surprised. "Okay." Later that night, while driving home, she asked softly, "Did I embarrass you?" He hesitated too long. "No," he said eventually, but she had already heard the pause. Over the next few months, Tund began noticing things he had never paid attention to before. How Amara's arms pressed against certain dresses. How her laughter filled spaces boldly. How she preferred local designers over imported brands. Things he once loved now irritated him. He didn't understand the shift fully. Success had begun whispering to him, "You belong in a different circle." He started correcting her grammar casually. "It's has gone, not has went." She would nod and adjust. He bought her new clothes. More fitted, more corporate. You should try losing a little weight, he suggested once, trying to sound casual. She stared at him. I've always been like this. I know, but things are different now. Different. The word echoed. Ton spent more evenings out. Meetings, he said. Client dinners. Strategy sessions. Some were true. Some were simply escapes. Amara began eating alone some nights. The new apartment felt larger, colder. One evening, she waited with a carefully cooked meal. He arrived late and distracted. I already ate, he said, removing his jacket. She forced a smile and cleared the table quietly. He noticed but pretended not to, because acknowledging it would require guilt. And guilt was inconvenient. One morning, while adjusting his tie, Ton stood before the mirror and studied himself. Sharp suit, expensive watch, confident posture. He looked like the kind of man he used to admire from afar. Then his eyes drifted to the bedroom where Amara still slept. Her body curved beneath the blanket. Soft, unchanged. A strange thought crept in. Does she still fit where I'm going? It was a cruel thought. He knew it, but he didn't push it away. Instead, he allowed it to sit, to grow. At another company gathering, one executive joked lightly, Tund, you're moving fast. Soon you'll need a trophy wife. The men laughed. Tund laughed too, but something inside him absorbed the comment. A trophy wife, a symbol of status. He drove home unsettled. Amara greeted him warmly, unaware of the seed planted in his mind. You're quiet, she said. Just tired. But he wasn't tired. He was thinking. And thinking can be dangerous when pride is steering. That night, Amara rested her head on his chest like she used to during the worst days of poverty. Remember when we couldn't afford meat? She said softly. He smiled faintly. Yes, we've come far. Yes, he replied. But his voice carried something different now. Ambition, restlessness, distance. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Inside, success had taken root. And somewhere between gratitude and ego, Tund began slowly forgetting the woman who had believed in him when he had nothing. He was climbing fast. Too fast to notice the ground beneath him shifting. The invitation card was thick. Gold lettering. Embossed edges. The company logo pressed proudly at the top. Annual Executive Gala Night. Black tie. Tund read it twice. This wasn't a regular dinner. This was the kind of event where promotions were quietly decided, alliances formed, reputations solidified. He folded the card carefully and placed it on the table. Amara picked it up later that evening. Oh, she smiled. Black tie. That sounds serious. It is, he replied. Then we must look serious. Her excitement was genuine. His silence wasn't. 3 days before the event, Amara returned home with a garment bag. I found something nice, she said shyly. She had used part of her savings. When she stepped out of the bedroom wearing it, she looked radiant. A deep emerald gown, flowing, elegant, modest. It hugged her curves, not tightly, but proudly. Her skin glowed against the fabric. She turned slowly. What do you think? Tund hesitated. It wasn't that she looked bad. She didn't. But in his mind, images flashed. Slim women in fitted satin dresses, delicate silhouettes, Instagram-perfect arms and waists. Amara's body was soft, full, visible. It's fine, he said. The word landed like a crack in glass. Just fine? She asked lightly, though her smile dimmed. It's okay. Maybe we can add something to slim it down a bit. Slim it down. She looked at herself in the mirror again. Oh, she said quietly. The venue was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, soft violin music floating through the air. Luxury cars lined the entrance. As they stepped out of their vehicle, Amara adjusted her clutch nervously. Are you sure I look okay? She asked. Yes, he replied quickly, already scanning the crowd. Inside, executives mingled in polished clusters. Women in fitted designer gowns glided across the room like they belonged on magazine covers. Tund felt his heartbeat increase, Not from pride. From pressure. He introduced Amara to a few colleagues. "This is my wife." They smiled politely. One woman's eyes flicked briefly over Amara's body before returning to her champagne glass. It might have meant nothing, but Tund noticed. And insecurity is loud even when others are silent. During dinner, laughter rose from a nearby table. One executive leaned toward Tund. "You're rising fast, my friend," he said warmly. "Next year you'll be at the head table." The man's wife, slim, poised, adorned in diamonds, smiled. "We'll expect you both at more social functions," she added. Her gaze lingered on Amara just a second too long. Tund felt heat rise under his collar. He glanced at Amara. She was eating carefully, trying not to stain her dress, trying to sit straighter, trying to belong. Something inside him twisted, not protectively, but critically. When Amara laughed at something another guest said, her voice rang clear and full. Heads turned briefly. Tund leaned closer. "Lower your voice," he whispered sharply. Her laughter died instantly. "I'm sorry," she murmured. The rest of the night, she barely spoke. The drive home was quiet. Streetlights passed in golden streaks through the windshield. Amara stared out the window. "You were uncomfortable," she said finally. "I wasn't. You were." He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "It's a different environment, Amara." "What does that mean?" "It means you have to adjust." She turned to face him. "In what way?" He exhaled heavily. "Your mannerisms. Your presence." "My presence." "You're too loud." "Too." He stopped himself. "Too what?" she pressed. He didn't answer, because saying it would make it real. 2 nights later it happened. He had just returned from work, irritated from a tense meeting. Amara was in the kitchen frying plantain. The oil crackled loudly. "Must you fry everything?" he snapped suddenly. She blinked in confusion. "What? You're always cooking heavy food." She stared at him. "You used to like my cooking." "I still do," he muttered. "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" He ran a frustrated hand through his hair. "The point is, look at yourself." Silence. The oil continued sizzling. "What about me?" she asked quietly. He didn't look at her. "You don't look like the wife of someone in my position." The words dropped like a bomb. Even the oil seemed to quiet. Amara turned off the stove slowly. She wiped her hands carefully before speaking. "I prayed for this position for you." Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't angry. It was wounded. "That's not what I'm saying." He tried to recover. "Then what are you saying?" He hesitated. "You've let yourself go." She stared at him as if seeing a stranger. "I've always been this way." "Yes, but things are different now." There it was again. Different. She took a small step back. "So now I am the problem?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." After that night, something fragile broke. She still cooked, still cleaned, still smiled when he left for work. But the warmth had cooled. She stopped resting her head on his chest at night. She began sleeping facing the wall. Tund noticed, but pride told him not to apologize. Instead, he justified himself. "I'm just trying to help her improve. She should want to fit my world." It's not wrong to expect growth. But deep down, he knew this wasn't about growth. It was about image. One Sunday afternoon, they attended a small family gathering. That's where he really noticed Lola, Amara's stepsister. Slim, confident, fashionable. She hugged him a little too warmly. "I've been hearing about your promotion," she smiled. "Big man." He chuckled. "Just working hard." She looked him up and down approvingly. "It shows." Amara watched from across the room. Something in her eyes flickered, but she said nothing. Lola's laughter was softer, her perfume stronger, her compliments frequent. When Tund drove home that evening, Lola's voice echoed faintly in his mind. "You deserve the best." The most dangerous words are often wrapped in flattery. That night, Amara stood before the mirror alone. She touched her waist gently, her hips, her arms, the same body that had stood under the sun selling food. The same body that had stayed up praying for his job. Now suddenly not enough. In the bedroom, Ton scrolled through social media, images of corporate wives, luxury lifestyles, curated perfection. He didn't look toward the mirror. If he had, he might have seen the quiet devastation forming behind her eyes. Success had given him status, but it had started stealing his gratitude. And shame, once planted, was beginning to bloom into cruelty. Lola did not enter Ton's life loudly. She entered like perfume, subtle at first, then everywhere. It began with messages. "Congrats again on your promotion, big bro-in-law," he replied politely. Then she sent a selfie one afternoon. "Trying a new hairstyle. What do you think?" He stared at the screen longer than necessary. "It looks nice," he typed. She responded instantly. "I like when you notice things." He told himself it was harmless. Just conversation. Just friendliness. But emotional lines rarely shatter in one moment. They blur first. At family gatherings, Lola began sitting closer, laughing a little harder at his jokes, complimenting his suits. "You look different these days," she'd say, tilting her head. "Successful." Amara noticed. She noticed the lingering glances, the private jokes, the subtle way Lola positioned herself beside him in photos. One evening after a gathering, Amara spoke softly in the car. "Your conversations with Lola are becoming frequent." Ton stiffened. "She's your sister." "Stepsister," she corrected gently. "And she doesn't look at you like a brother." He exhaled sharply. "You're imagining things." "I'm not." "Amara, please. Not everything is a threat." The dismissal hurt more than the possibility. Tund began spending more time outside. Business meetings stretched longer. Weekend conferences appeared suddenly. When he was home, he seemed distracted. His phone stayed face down. One night, while he showered, a message lit up his screen. "Lola, I wish I met you first." Amara saw it. She didn't open the conversation. She didn't need to. The sentence was enough. When he stepped out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, she held the phone quietly. "What is this?" He froze. "It's nothing." "It doesn't look like nothing." He grabbed the phone from her hand. "You're invading my privacy." Her eyes widened. "Privacy? She's my sister. And she's an adult," he snapped. "Stop being dramatic." The word hit hard. Dramatic. As if betrayal were theater. The arguments grew sharper, colder. One evening, after another tense dinner eaten in silence, Tun spoke the sentence he had rehearsed in his head for weeks. "I don't think this marriage is working." Amara stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I've changed." "You haven't." "I wasn't aware I was required to." "It's not about requirements," he said impatiently. "We're not aligned anymore." "Aligned?" she repeated, almost laughing in disbelief. "We survived poverty together. That was different." She swallowed hard. "So now that there's money, I don't fit?" He didn't deny it. That silence was louder than confession. Her voice trembled for the first time. "Is this about Lola?" He stood abruptly. "Don't make this ugly." "Ugly?" she whispered. "You think this isn't already?" He ran a hand through his hair. "I want a divorce." The word felt foreign in the air. Heavy. Permanent. She stared at him for a long time, searching his face for hesitation. There was none. Just impatience. Just distance. "After everything?" she asked. He looked away. "I deserve someone who matches where I'm going." And just like that, the man she prayed for vanished completely. Amara did not scream. She did not beg. She did not curse him. She packed quietly, folded her clothes, removed her few jewelry pieces from the drawer. The apartment echoed differently that night. When she zipped her bag, he felt something twist in his chest, but pride held him still. "Where will you go?" he asked, not out of concern, but logistics. "I'll manage." She paused at the door. "I hope you find what you think you're looking for." Then she left. No drama. No scene. Just absence. 2 months later, Tund married Lola. The ceremony was extravagant. A grand hall. crystal chandeliers, imported decorations, a live band. Colleagues attended. Executives sprayed money generously. Lola wore a fitted white gown that hugged her slim figure perfectly. She looked like the kind of wife magazines showcased beside powerful men. People whispered admiringly. They look good together. They match. Tund stood tall in his tailored suit. For a moment he felt victorious. Validated. Chosen. But as music played and cameras flashed, there was a flicker, brief and inconvenient, of memory. Amara standing under the sun, fanning charcoal. Amara ironing his only shirt before his interview. Amara whispering, "You are not less of a man if you lose a job." He pushed the thoughts away. This was his new life, and it glittered. Lola moved into the apartment like she had always belonged there. She replaced curtains, changed furniture, ordered new decor. "The place needs a modern touch," she said. She posted photos online immediately. New beginnings. Compliments flooded her page. Power couple. Goals. Soft life activated. Tund enjoyed the image. He liked the way people looked at him differently now. Like he had upgraded. Like he had won. Lola accompanied him to corporate events effortlessly. She spoke English smoothly. Her laughter was controlled. Her body fit seamlessly into expensive dresses. Colleagues' wives complimented her style. Tund noticed, and something inside him felt justified. The first real crack appeared during their honeymoon planning. "I want Maldives," Lola said casually. "That's expensive." She raised an eyebrow. "You can afford it. I just got promoted. I have responsibilities." She folded her arms. "You didn't leave your wife to start counting coins." The sentence unsettled him. "Left your wife." She said it lightly, like it was an achievement. He forced a laugh. "We'll see." She smiled sweetly and kissed his cheek. "I like generous men." It sounded like admiration, but it was instruction. One evening, weeks into the new marriage, Tund stood on the balcony alone. The city lights sparkled below. Inside, Lola was on the phone discussing a jewelry set she wanted. Her laughter floated through the glass doors. He looked at his reflection in the balcony window. Sharp suit, beautiful wife, promising career, everything he thought he wanted. So why did the silence feel different now? Behind him, Lola called out playfully, "Baby, come see this necklace." He turned and walked back inside. He had chosen this life, and soon he would discover that some upgrades come with hidden costs. Costs far greater than he imagined. First, it felt like reward. After years of struggle, Tund believed he deserved indulgence. And Lola? She didn't believe in doing anything halfway. Their first vacation was to Dubai. It started as a suggestion. "Just 5 days," Lola said, scrolling through beach photos on her phone. "We deserve it." Deserve. It was a word she used often. The flight tickets were expensive. The hotel overlooking the marina cost more than his old annual rent. But when Lola stepped out onto the balcony in a flowing white dress, wind catching her hair, city skyline glittering behind her, Tund felt victorious. He posted a picture online. Caption, "Hard work pays." Likes poured in. Colleagues commented fire emojis. Old friends sent private messages. "You're living the life, bro." He smiled. This was the proof. When they returned, the spending didn't slow. It accelerated. Lola developed a taste for designer brands quickly. Shoes that cost as much as a small motorcycle. Handbags with waiting lists. Jewelry that came in velvet boxes. She would show him pictures casually. "This would look good at the next gala. That executive's wife has this one. It's an investment." Investment. Tund's salary was high but not limitless. Still, he didn't want to look small. So he paid. Credit cards began filling quietly. Savings began thinning. He told himself it was temporary. Promotion would come again. Bonuses would increase. He was rising. Lola knew how to apply pressure without sounding demanding. She never shouted. She compared. "I saw your colleague's wife just got a Range Rover. Or, they're traveling to Paris next month. It must be nice to have that kind of freedom." Freedom. The word always came with a glance. He began working longer hours, taking on extra responsibilities, volunteering for complex projects to secure favor with management. If money was the solution, he would earn more. But the more he earned, the higher her expectations climbed. Lola expanded her social life. Brunches, spa days, private birthday parties. She moved comfortably among women who treated luxury like oxygen. At one gathering, a friend laughed lightly. "You're lucky your husband can afford your taste." Lola smiled sweetly. "He knows I don't settle." When Tund heard about the comment later, something tightened inside him. Not anger, pressure. Because now his ability to provide was being observed publicly. He was no longer just earning for comfort. He was earning for image. It happened during an unexpected expense. One of Lola's jewelry purchases coincided with a delayed company reimbursement. Their account dipped lower than he anticipated. For the first time in years, he felt that familiar financial squeeze. He sat at his desk one evening reviewing spreadsheets, both company and personal. Numbers blurred. He noticed something. A project allocation budget had surplus funds temporarily sitting unused. It would be redistributed later, of course. But right now it was idle. His mind lingered there longer than it should have. "It's temporary," a voice whispered. "You could borrow it. Replace it before anyone notices." He shut his laptop abruptly. What was he thinking? He wasn't that kind of man. Was he? That weekend, Lola entered the living room glowing with excitement. "Guess what?" "What?" "We've been invited to a luxury yacht party next month." He raised an eyebrow. "Okay. It's exclusive. Only couples from certain circles." He waited. "There's a dress I need." "How much?" she told him. His stomach tightened. "That's a lot." She pouted slightly. "You don't want me to look out of place, do you?" He rubbed his temples. "It's not about that. It always is," she replied quietly. That night he barely slept. Her words echoed. Out of place. Wasn't that the fear that pushed him away from Amara? Out of place. Now he was the one at risk of feeling it. The following week, pressure mounted at work. Deadlines, cost adjustments, financial oversight. During a late evening at the office, he opened the project account file again. The surplus funds still sat there, unallocated, unused. He justified quickly. "It's not stealing. It's adjusting temporarily. I'll replace it once the next bonus hits." He initiated a subtle transfer under a miscellaneous expense line. Small, barely noticeable. His hands trembled as he confirmed it. The transaction went through. Silence. No alarms. No emails. He exhaled slowly. The world didn't end. He bought the dress. Lola's reaction was explosive joy. She threw her arms around him. "I knew you wouldn't disappoint me." Her happiness felt intoxicating. At the yacht party, she dazzled. Champagne flowed. Music pulsed. She leaned against him and whispered, "This is the life." He believed her. For that moment, the risk felt worth it. The problem with crossing a line once is that it becomes easier the second time. Another expense. Another shortfall. Another temporary adjustment. Each time he told himself it was controlled. Strategic. Under management. He monitored the numbers closely. Planned to replace them. But lifestyle costs never paused. Lola began discussing international property investments. "Real wealth is global," she said confidently. He nodded, though anxiety began living permanently beneath his ribs. One afternoon, an email circulated internally. Subject: upcoming financial audit. Routine. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual. But Tund felt his pulse spike instantly. Audit. The word chilled him. He reread the email 3 times. 2 weeks. The review would begin in 2 weeks. He calculated quickly. He could restore most of the funds before then. Maybe all. If bonuses came on time. If no unexpected expenses occurred. If everything aligned perfectly. He swallowed hard. For the first time, fear outweighed pride. That evening, Lola showed him a diamond bracelet. "It's timeless," she said. And the price will only go up. He stared at it blankly. We should slow down. She blinked. Slow down. Yes. For a while. Her expression shifted subtly. Is something wrong? No. Just planning. She studied him carefully. You're not becoming small-minded, are you? The phrase stung. Small-minded. He forced a smile. Of course not. But inside, panic was rising. Later that night, he stood alone again on the balcony. The same spot where he once felt victorious. The city lights still shimmered. But now they felt accusatory. He replayed the first transfer in his mind. The justification. The ease. The silence afterward. He thought about Amara briefly. About the days when they counted coins honestly. When struggle felt clean. He shook the thought away quickly. That life was gone. He had chosen elevation. Chosen image. Chosen class. And class had a price. Inside, Lola laughed loudly on a video call. He turned back toward the apartment. Toward the life he was maintaining. Unaware that audits do not care about image. And numbers do not respect ego. 2 weeks. That was all the time he had before everything he built began to tremble. Tund had barely slept. For 2 weeks, he had moved like a man balancing glass on his head, careful, tense, calculating every step. He had managed to replace some of the money. Not all. There were still gaps. Small gaps, but gaps nonetheless. He told himself audits were broad, complex, focused on major discrepancies. His adjustments were minor, strategic, temporary. He adjusted his tie in the office restroom mirror and forced himself to breathe slowly. You're overthinking, he muttered to his reflection. But his reflection didn't look convinced. At exactly 9:02 a.m., 3 unfamiliar faces walked into the building. 2 men, 1 woman, calm, professional, carrying laptops and files. No smiles, no tension either, just procedure. The finance department stiffened instantly. Audits changed the air in any company. Conversations became shorter. Laughter disappeared. Tund stayed in his office, pretending to focus on site reports. His phone buzzed. Finance. We may need clarification on some project allocations later today. His stomach dropped. Later today. Not next week. Not after review. Today. At 11:17 a.m., his assistant knocked gently. Sir, the audit team would like to see you. He nodded slowly, though his pulse was hammering. The boardroom felt colder than usual. The auditors sat across from him, laptops open. One of them, the woman, spoke first. Mr. Tund, we're reviewing the housing project budget under your supervision. Yes, he replied evenly. We noticed a few adjustments categorized under miscellaneous expenses. He swallowed. Yes, site-related adjustments. She nodded, fingers moving across her keyboard. Can you clarify these entries? She turned the screen toward him. There it was. Every transfer, every date, every carefully disguised movement. Seeing it laid out cleanly made it look uglier than he remembered. Those were temporary reallocations, he said carefully. Temporary? One of the men asked. Yes, to manage short-term logistical needs. The woman tilted her head slightly. We'll need documentation to support that. Documentation. He had created minimal cover, but not enough for deep inspection. He felt sweat gather at the back of his neck. I can provide some receipts. We'll wait, she replied calmly. Back in his office, his hands shook as he opened folders. He tried reconstructing narratives, moving numbers, recalculating timelines. But audits weren't rumors. They were math. And math does not bend for ego. His phone buzzed again. Lola. He ignored it. She called again. He declined the call. A text followed. Did you transfer the money for the bracelet? The seller is waiting. Bracelet. He closed his eyes briefly. Not now. At 2:45 p.m., they called him again. This time, his manager was present. The atmosphere had shifted. Less polite. More direct. Mr. Tund, the senior auditor began. The miscellaneous transfers total a significant amount over several months. He stayed silent. These funds were not approved through standard channels. He cleared his throat. I intended to reconcile them. When? He hesitated. That hesitation was enough. His manager's face hardened. Are you admitting to unauthorized movement of company funds? The room felt like it was shrinking. I planned to replace the amounts before final allocation. The words sounded weak even to him. That does not answer the question. Silence. Finally, he said it. Yes. The word echoed heavily. By 4:30 p.m., his access card was deactivated. His laptop confiscated. He was asked to clear his desk under supervision. Whispers began immediately. Colleagues avoided eye contact. Some looked shocked. Others looked unsurprised. He placed his personal items into a small cardboard box, the same kind he once watched other dismissed employees carry. Full circle. As he walked toward the exit, the security guard who used to greet him respectfully avoided his gaze. Outside, the sun felt cruelly bright. He stood there for a long moment. Then his phone buzzed again. Lola. He answered this time. Baby, are you okay? She asked lightly. You've been ignoring me. He swallowed. There's a problem. What kind of problem? They audited the accounts. Pause. And I've been suspended. Another pause. How long? It could lead to dismissal. Silence. Then her voice changed. What do you mean dismissal? I mean I might lose my job. The line was quiet for several seconds. Finally, she spoke. So what happens now? Not are you okay? Not what did they say exactly. Just logistics. I don't know yet. Well, find out, she replied. We have payments coming up. The call ended. He stared at his screen long after it went dark. 2 days later, he received the final decision. Termination of employment. Immediate effect. Pending potential legal review. No benefits. No severance. No recommendation. His hands felt numb holding the letter. He had climbed so fast. And fallen faster. When he entered the apartment, Lola was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. She looked up immediately. Well, it's done. She stood slowly. They fired you? Yes. For how long? It's permanent. She stared at him like she was recalculating something invisible. What about the investigation? It's internal. They're not pressing charges. Yet. She exhaled sharply. Yet. He dropped onto a chair. I messed up. She crossed her arms. So what do we do about the car loan? The rent? The club membership? He blinked at her. Is that what you're worried about? What else should I be worried about? She snapped. You didn't think about consequences when you were playing hero. Hero? He repeated. Yes. Trying to maintain some fake lifestyle. Fake. The word cut deeper than he expected. You were the one pushing for it? He shot back. Her eyes widened. Excuse me? You wanted Maldives. You wanted jewelry. You wanted yacht parties. And you wanted to impress your colleagues. She fired back. Don't act innocent. The room filled with accusation. Blame. Truth twisted in both directions. Finally, she said quietly, I didn't marry a failure. The sentence landed harder than the termination letter. Over the next week, everything changed. Calls from unknown numbers, likely creditors. Emails regarding overdue payments. The landlord requesting clarification about rent. Lola stopped cooking, stopped smiling, stopped pretending. She spent more time out. Meeting friends, she'd say. One evening, he noticed several of her jewelry pieces missing from the dresser. Where are they? He asked. I sold some, she replied flatly. For us. She gave him a look. For myself. It happened on a Tuesday morning. He woke to silence. No running shower. No perfume in the air. The wardrobe door stood open. Half her clothes were gone. On the table, a short note. I need stability. I can't live like this. Don't contact me until you fix yourself. That was all. No apology. No gratitude. No memory of vows. He sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. The apartment felt enormous. Empty. Echoing. He thought back, painfully, to the tiny one-room space he once shared with Amara. Back when struggle felt united. Now luxury had evaporated, and he stood alone. No job, no wife, no image, just consequences. That evening, as darkness swallowed the city, Tund stood once again on the balcony. But this time, the lights below did not shimmer with promise. They flickered like judgment. He leaned forward, gripping the railing. He had wanted class, status, appearance. He had traded loyalty for image, integrity for impression. And now, everything he climbed for had collapsed beneath him. Inside the silent apartment, unpaid bills lay scattered across the table. For the first time in years, he whispered into the night, "Amara!" But the wind carried his voice away, and karma, patient and precise, was not finished with him yet. The silence in the apartment was different now. Not peaceful, not calm, empty. Tund woke up on a Thursday morning to sunlight cutting across the marble floor, but there was no scent of perfume in the air. No distant hum of Lola's voice on the phone. No clinking of jewelry on the dresser. Just stillness. He turned his head toward her side of the bed. Cold. Untouched. She had been gone for 3 days. At first, he told himself she needed space. That she would return once things stabilized. By the 4th day, the wardrobe told the truth. Half the hangers were empty. The designer suitcases were gone. The diamond bracelet, the one that started everything, was gone too. In their place, dust. His phone rang before he even left the bed. Unknown number. He answered reluctantly. "Good morning, sir. This is regarding your car loan payment, which is now overdue." He ended the call. Another call followed within minutes. "Sir, your credit card minimum payment has not been received." Another. "Sir, management requires confirmation about your rent." Each ring felt like a reminder that the life he built was built on balance sheets he no longer controlled. He sat up slowly. The apartment looked beautiful. Too beautiful. Polished furniture. Imported curtains. Glass coffee table. It all felt borrowed now. By afternoon, he opened his banking app. The numbers were smaller than he had ever allowed them to be in years. Severely smaller. He calculated quickly. If he cut expenses drastically, canceled subscriptions, avoided going out, negotiated extensions, he could survive 2 months. Maybe 3. After that, nothing. He leaned back in the chair. For the first time since his promotion years ago, he felt small again. Not just financially, personally. He had measured his worth by income. Now that income was gone. Who was he? On Saturday morning, there was a knock at the door. Firm. Unapologetic. The landlord stood outside. "Well dressed as usual," he said politely, but without warmth. "I've received notice about your employment situation." Tund stiffened. "I'm resolving it." "I'm sure you are. But rent is due next week." "I'll sort it out." The landlord nodded slowly. "I hope so." Hope. The word felt like mockery. When the door closed, Tund leaned his forehead against it for a moment. In his mind, a different memory surfaced. Another landlord. Another door. Another time when he had stood beside Amara promising they would rise together. He pushed the memory away. It hurt too much. He updated his CV that night. Removed the termination details. Adjusted dates. Reworded responsibilities. He told himself dismissal didn't erase competence. But interviews are not just about skill. They are about reputation. And corporate circles talk. The first application went unanswered. The second requested clarification about his previous role ending. The third interview went well until they mentioned background checks. His throat tightened. He left knowing it was over before it began. A week later, she texted. Not to reconcile. Not to ask how he was. Just logistics. "I'll send someone to pick up the rest of my things." He stared at the message for a long time. Then typed, "Are you coming back?" 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, "I need stability." The same word she used before. Stability. He wanted to laugh. He had once abandoned stability for Sparkle. Now Sparkle had abandoned him for survival. The car was the first thing to go. The bank repossessed it quietly. He watched from the balcony as it was driven away. The same car he once used to arrive at galas confidently, now towed like a failed investment. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Whispers floated faintly. He remembered how he once feared embarrassment for Amara selling food. Now he understood humiliation from the other side. By the second month, he couldn't maintain the rent. He packed what little remained. Clothes, documents, a few pieces of furniture sold off quickly online. He moved into a smaller apartment on the outskirts of the city. No marble floors, no balcony view, just plain walls and a tired ceiling fan that clicked softly, just like the one from years ago. The full circle was almost cruelly poetic. He sat on the mattress placed directly on the floor. For the first time in a long while, there was no image to maintain. No performance. Just him. Nights became long. He replayed everything. The gala. The first cruel sentence. "You don't look like the wife of someone in my position." He flinched remembering it. Amara's face. The way she didn't shout. The way she simply absorbed the wound. He remembered the interview day, how she ironed his shirt with hope in her eyes. How she believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. He buried his face in his hands. What had he traded that for? Yacht parties, designer shoes, temporary applause. He whispered into the quiet room. "I was stupid." No one answered. One evening, hunger hit harder than pride. He hadn't cooked in days. He stepped outside and walked aimlessly. Eventually, he stopped in front of a roadside food stand. A woman stood behind it, fanning charcoal. The smell of jollof rice filled the air. The sight froze him. For a second, he expected to see Amara there. But it wasn't her. Just another woman fighting to survive. He ordered quietly, sat on a plastic chair. As he ate, he realized something painful. He had once been ashamed of this life. But this life was honest. Struggle, sweat, effort. He had left honesty for image. An image had no loyalty. Weeks later, while scrolling aimlessly online, he saw something unexpected. A photo. A familiar face. Amara. She stood beside a well-dressed older man at what looked like a catering event. The caption read, "Grand opening of Amara's Kitchen and Events. Excellence served with love." He stared. Catering company? Expansion? She looked radiant. Not smaller. Not changed. Just confident. The man beside her looked at her with admiration, not embarrassment. Comments flooded the post. "Proud of you. From roadside to empire. Beauty and strength." His chest tightened. She hadn't shrunk. She had grown. Without him. That night, he lay on his thin mattress staring at the ceiling fan. The clicking sound echoed softly. He thought about the choices he made. He told himself he wanted class. But class without character collapses. He told himself he wanted status. But status without gratitude rots. He told himself he deserved better. But better had been beside him all along. Now he had nothing. Not because poverty returned, but because pride destroyed what poverty couldn't. Rain began falling lightly outside. The roof above him leaked slightly in one corner. He shifted his mattress away from the drip. Years ago, Amara would have laughed and placed a bucket under it. They would have turned hardship into teamwork. Now he moved the bucket alone. As thunder rolled faintly in the distance, Tund understood something clearly for the first time. Luxury can disappear overnight, but character disappears slowly, choice by choice. And rebuilding one is harder than rebuilding the other. In the darkness, he whispered again, "Amara." But this time it wasn't pride speaking. It was regret. And regret does not rewind time. When Amara left Tund's apartment, she did not know where she was going. She only knew she could not stay. The night air felt heavier than her suitcase. Every step away from the building felt unreal, like she was walking out of a life she had once prayed for. She didn't cry immediately. Shock delays tears. She stayed temporarily with an old church friend, Chioma, who welcomed her without questions. "You can rest here," Chioma said gently. "Then we'll figure out the rest." Rest. It was a word Amara had not allowed herself in years. But rest didn't last long. She had always been a woman of movement. Within a week, she began cooking again. Not because she was forced, because cooking was the one thing nobody could take from her. She started small, preparing meals for neighbors, office workers nearby, church events. Word spread quickly. Her food had always been good, but now it carried something deeper, resilience. People tasted love in it. They tasted effort. They tasted honesty. One afternoon, a woman approached her after buying a plate of rice. "Do you cater for small events?" Amara hesitated. "I can." It wasn't a lie. She had catered small family gatherings before. "Good. My daughter is having a graduation party. 50 guests. 50. Her heart raced, but she nodded. "Yes, I can do it." That night, she barely slept, not from heartbreak, from planning. She borrowed extra pots, rented additional coolers, cooked through the night with 2 women from church. By morning, exhaustion burned behind her eyes. But when guests began eating, compliments started flowing. "Who cooked this? This is better than restaurant food." The graduate's mother hugged her. "You've done well." And just like that, something shifted. For the first time since her divorce, she felt powerful. Not because a man chose her, but because she built something. 3 months later, she received a larger request. A corporate retirement ceremony. 150 guests. The event coordinator was a dignified older man with calm eyes and measured speech. Chief Emeka. He had recently lost his wife of 30 years. Widowed. Reserved. He tasted her sample menu personally. He didn't rush. He didn't talk over her. He listened. "This is excellent," he said finally. "Where did you train?" "I didn't," she admitted. "I learned by cooking for my family." He studied her for a moment longer than necessary. "There is discipline in your flavor." She smiled politely. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, with respect, not evaluation. The retirement ceremony was elegant. High-profile guests, business executives, community leaders. Amara arrived early, supervising every detail carefully. She moved with quiet confidence now, issuing instructions, adjusting presentation, checking portions. Chief Emeka watched from a distance. He noticed how she greeted staff by name, how she stayed until the last guest was satisfied, how she refused to leave leftovers wasted. At the end of the night, he approached her. "You run your work like someone who understands loss," he said. She looked up, surprised. "I've lost things," she replied softly. He nodded slowly. "So have I." It wasn't flirtation. It was recognition. A week later, he invited her to his office. The building was large, polished, intimidating. She wore her best Ankara dress and sat upright in the leather chair across from him. "I've made inquiries," he said calmly. "You operate without formal structure. No registered company. No proper branding." She nodded. "I don't have the capital." "I do." She blinked. "I'm not asking for ownership," he continued. "I'm offering partnership. I invest. You expand. We formalize this properly." Her heart pounded. "Why?" He leaned back slightly. "Because talent deserves room. No hidden motive. No suggestive tone. Just opportunity." Tears stung her eyes unexpectedly. Not because she was overwhelmed. Because someone finally saw her without trying to change her. Within 6 months, Amara's kitchen and events was registered officially. She moved from roadside cooking to a modest catering facility. Uniforms for staff. Delivery vans. Professional menus. Social media presence. Her body remained the same, soft, full, unapologetic. But her posture changed. Her confidence settled differently. She no longer shrank herself in rooms. She entered them. Clients began requesting her specifically. Weddings, corporate galas, charity banquets. Her calendar filled quickly. And through it all, Chief Emeka remained steady. Never possessive, never pressuring. He attended tastings occasionally, offered strategic advice, respected boundaries. One evening, after reviewing quarterly growth numbers, he spoke carefully. "May I ask you something personal?" She hesitated but nodded. "Why did your marriage end?" She inhaled slowly. He outgrew the version of me he thought I should be. Emika's eyes held no judgment. And you? I grew in a different direction. He smiled faintly. That seems to be working in your favor. She laughed softly. Yes, it does. Silence settled between them, comfortable, not heavy. Then he said gently, I admire you. The words were simple, not dramatic, not performative. She felt warmth rise in her chest. Not the anxious kind she once felt trying to impress someone. This felt safe. Their relationship did not begin with fireworks. It began with conversations, shared meals, discussions about business and grief and rebuilding. He never once commented on her body, never suggested change, never compared her to anyone. When he finally proposed, it wasn't at a crowded event. It was in his garden under soft evening light. I do not need a trophy, he said quietly. I need a partner. Tears filled her eyes. For years she had tried to be smaller, quieter, more polished. Now someone wanted her exactly as she was. Yes, she whispered. Their wedding was elegant but dignified. No excessive display, no competition, just joy. When she stepped out of the black Rolls-Royce on their wedding day, cameras flashed. But this time she didn't feel evaluated. She felt chosen by someone who saw her worth when she had nothing flashy to offer. Her company expanded even further after the marriage. Not because she married wealth, but because wealth amplified what she already built. And she never forgot the roadside. She funded small food vendors quietly, paid for culinary training scholarships, hired women who needed second chances. She refused to become what once hurt her. One afternoon, as she prepared for a major event launch, she stood before a mirror in her office, not checking to see if she looked slimmer, not adjusting herself to fit expectation, just smiling at her reflection. The same body, the same woman, but no longer apologizing for taking up space. Her assistant knocked gently. Ma'am, the guests are arriving. She nodded. As she walked toward the entrance, she spotted a familiar figure standing hesitantly near the gate. Tunned, thinner, quieter, smaller than she remembered. For a brief second, their eyes met. He looked down first. She did not feel anger. She did not feel revenge. She felt closure. Beside her, Chief Emika stepped forward confidently. Ready? He asked softly. She smiled. I've been ready. And together they walked inside, not to prove anything, not to perform, but to live fully, because sometimes the greatest comeback isn't loud. It's peaceful. The event center shimmered under golden evening lights. A long red carpet stretched from the entrance to the main hall. Floral arrangements lined the pathway. Valets hurried between luxury cars parked in perfect rows. A large banner stood near the entrance. Amara's Kitchen and Events, 5th Anniversary Gala. Underneath, in elegant script, excellence served with love. Inside the hall, guests mingled in expensive attire. Soft live music floated through the air. The scent of rich meals, prepared by a team trained personally by Amara, filled the room. This wasn't just a celebration. It was proof. Across the street, standing near the security checkpoint, was Tund. His shirt was clean but worn at the collar. His shoes were polished but old. He held a small brown envelope, his CV. He had come because he heard the company was hiring administrative staff. He hadn't known it was her company at first. Not until he saw the banner. His hands trembled slightly. 5 years. 5 years since everything collapsed. He had drifted from one temporary job to another. Contract work. Site supervision for smaller firms. Nothing stable. Nothing permanent. His reputation in corporate circles never fully recovered. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the quiet realization of what he lost. A sleek black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the entrance. Security moved quickly. The rear door opened. Amara stepped out. Graceful, confident, radiant. Her gown flowed around her beautifully, not hiding her curves, not apologizing for them. Gold jewelry shimmered softly against her skin. Her smile was calm, not forced. Beside her stepped Chief Emika, dignified as always. He offered his arm gently. She took it naturally. No tension. No insecurity. Just partnership. The cameras flashed. Guests applauded softly. Tund watched from across the gate. Frozen. She looked whole. Not smaller. Not bitter. Just elevated. And it wasn't just the wealth. It was the peace. As Amara walked toward the entrance, greeting guests, her eyes shifted briefly toward the gate. She saw him. It wasn't shock that crossed her face. It was recognition. For a split second, time folded backward. The one-room apartment. The roadside food stand. The interview day. The cruel sentence. Then time unfolded again. Present. Complete. She paused slightly. Chief Emeka noticed. "Is everything all right?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she replied gently. "Just an old chapter." He followed her gaze. He understood without needing explanation. "Do you want to speak to him?" She considered the question, then nodded. Briefly, security hesitated when she approached the gate. "It's fine," she said calmly. They stepped aside. Tund straightened awkwardly as she approached. Up close, he felt smaller than he had imagined. "Amara," he said softly. She nodded politely. "Tund." The way she said his name, neutral, steady, hurt more than anger would have. I didn't know this was yours," he admitted. "It is," she replied simply. "I heard you were hiring." "We are." He swallowed. "I came to apply." Silence settled between them. Not hostile, just honest. He glanced toward the banner behind her. "You've done well." "Thank you." He hesitated, then forced the words out. "I was wrong." The sentence felt heavy leaving his mouth. She studied his face. Older now, regret carved gently around his eyes. "I know," she said calmly. No accusation, no triumph, just truth. He nodded slowly. I thought success meant upgrading everything." She gave a faint, thoughtful smile. "Success reveals who you are. It doesn't change it." He looked down at the envelope in his hand. "I lost everything." She tilted her head slightly. "No," she said softly. "You gave everything away." The sentence wasn't cruel. It was accurate. He absorbed it quietly. Chief Emeka approached respectfully but firmly. "Good evening," he greeted. Tund nodded. "Good evening, sir." There was no hostility in Emeka's presence. Just quiet authority. Amara turned back to Tund. "Submit your CV at the front desk tomorrow," she said. He blinked, surprised. "You'd consider it?" "We hire based on competence," she replied. "Not history." His throat tightened. "Thank you." She nodded once more. This time billed carefully. Then she stepped back toward her husband. No lingering glance. No emotional unraveling. Just closure. As she re-entered the event hall, applause rose when she took the stage. She stood at the podium, scanning the room filled with guests, partners, employees. 5 years ago, she stood behind a charcoal stove. Now she stood behind a microphone. "Thank you all for believing in excellence," she began warmly. "This company was built on resilience, integrity, and love." Integrity. The word echoed quietly outside where Tund still stood. She continued, "We all face seasons that test us. But what defines us is not the loss. It is the character we choose in response." Her eyes briefly softened, not searching for him, but acknowledging the journey. The audience applauded loudly. Beside her, Chief Emeka looked at her not with possession, but with admiration. Tund remained at the gate a little longer after she disappeared inside. He looked at the banner again. Excellence served with love. He remembered the days she served food by the roadside, sweating under the sun without complaint. He remembered calling her not enough. Now he understood something painfully clear. She had never been too small for his success. He had been too small for her loyalty. He finally turned and walked away slowly. Not angry, not bitter, just aware. For the first time in years, he did not blame circumstance. He blamed choice. And maybe, just maybe, that awareness was the beginning of his real rebuilding. Inside the hall, Music swelled as the anniversary cake was rolled forward. Amara laughed softly as guests gathered around. Chief Emeka leaned closer. "Are you happy?" he asked. She looked around the room at her staff, her clients, her husband. Then she answered without hesitation. "Yes." And outside, under softer streetlights, a man who once mistook pride for power finally understood that love, real love, had been wealth all along. Full circle. Not revenge. Justice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.